Over the last few weeks, you must have seen a lot of posts about Expedition 33, saying how much better it is than other JRPGs because it has realistic visuals, how it's not boring like other turn-based games, and how the story is much more mature because the cast isn't comprised of teenagers and because it doesn't solve problems using the power of friendship. Now, I haven't finished the game myself yet, so I can't comment on how good or bad the overall experience is. But I have seen enough in the 25 hours that I've spent in the game so far to realize that not only are these statements simply wrong, but they're also extremely misguided. But we'll talk about that in the end, because that's not what this video is about. I have figured out the one thing in which Expedition 33 actually stands out from the vast majority of turn-based games in existence, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Because I'm a genius.
Turn-based games in general have at least one mechanic that decides whether your attacks are going to hit or miss. Some games have a stat like accuracy that directly affects the hit rate of your moves. Others have a stat called evasion that decides the probability of you as well as your enemies being able to avoid an attack. And then we have games like Baldur's Gate 3 based on tabletop games that use dice rolls to determine the success of an attack. Each model has an element of randomness that is fundamental to its combat. For example, I haven't played a Pokemon game since Gen 5, but to this date, there is not a single move that I hate in the entire Pokemon franchise more than Double Team. I'm sorry, but what can I say? I'm not your mama.
Boom. Roasted.
Double Team is a move that greatly increases evasion and causes your attacks to miss. And as someone who mostly goes for an all-offensive build, you could see how that would be frustrating if your attacks just straight up refuse to land. I know, some might call this a skill issue, but you know what?
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Another example is Persona, where you can have the perfect setup for an all-out attack, but one miss and the whole fight turns against you. Megaton games in general can even punish you for missing a hit, often making you lose entire turns and, as a result, the fight. Again, I'm sure you can see why something like this might be frustrating. Don't get me wrong, it's not inherently a bad thing because without this element of randomness, turn-based games would be very predictable and hence very boring. And obviously, it can also work to your advantage because enemy attacks have a chance to miss too, which can be a real lifesaver at times, especially during boss battles. But ultimately, it's something that is mostly out of the player's control and can lead to situations that might feel a bit unfair. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 does not have this issue, and that's exactly what sets it apart from so many turn-based games. During my initial hours in Expedition 33, I lost to this guy a lot, which wasn't surprising because I was severely underleveled, so my attacks barely did any damage. I must have fought him maybe 7 to 8 times over an hour before I gave up. It was during this fight that I realized not a single attack ever missed, whether it was the enemy's or mine. At first I thought it might be a fluke, but my theory was confirmed when I finally got to this guy. Now, if you don't know, this enemy gets 2 more hits every time it attacks you, so the longer the battle goes on, the longer his attacks last. I think I saw it go up to 20 hits maybe. And again, not a single hit was going to miss. Imagine that. 20 attacks in a row where every move is going to hit you. So your only option to avoid taking damage is to actively dodge or parry. Meaning, Expedition 33 completely eliminates the randomness involved in the success rate of attacks. And this makes it one of the most unique turn-based games in existence, because it takes the outcome of a fight out of the realm of probabilities and puts it directly on the player. Ultimately, it means that whether you win or how you win or why you win depends directly on player input without leaving anything to chance. And where this really makes the biggest difference is when it comes to one-shot attacks. You see, a lot of turn-based games have really powerful attacks that have the potential to kill you in one hit. Going with our previous examples, Pokemon calls it one-hit knockouts with moves like Horn Drill. Megaton games call it insta-kill with moves like Mudo and Mudoon. Very powerful moves indeed, but they also have a lower accuracy rating because obviously if they were a guaranteed hit every time, nobody would use anything else. Similarly, Expedition 33 also has one-shot attacks, like this guy's Mortal Strike. But here, you don't have the benefit of a lower accuracy rating. RNGesus is never going to be in your corner. So while fighting this guy, I know if I don't dodge or parry this attack, I'm dead. Which means every single thing that happens with an enemy encounter depends on the player. To be fair, there are instances in Expedition 33 where your attacks will miss. This is almost a sure thing to happen with flying enemies. But again, in this instance, the game tells you upfront, if you see a flying enemy, you better start. Otherwise, you'll miss most of your attacks. And obviously, there is randomness in the form of critical hits, which you'll be most familiar with if you go with what I like to call the dopamine build. This is mine, and it relies way too much on being able to parry, which means I lose a lot of fights, but when it hits, oh my god does it really hit. But the point is, for the most part, Expedition 33's combat leaves very little to chance, and it all comes down to how well you're able to balance dodges and parries with your offensive moves. There's no such thing as, man, if my attack didn't miss, I would have won that fight. At no point can you say that the game is being unfair, and if you lose, you know what that means. Coming back to these posts about Expedition 33, here's the problem with this line of thinking. The only thing they do is show that you just don't know how to express your appreciation for something without insulting something else. And the saddest thing about that, not to mention extremely ironic, is that not only are you putting down an entire genre of video games, you're doing it to prop up a game that in itself is a very sincere love letter to that genre. Because, like it or not, Expedition 33 is chock full of anime JRPG tropes, right down to the damn jiggle physics and the goofy dialogue. One of the most important cast members is a teenager. SKA's entire character is rooted in the power of friendship. Some of the dialogue is pretty much what you'd expect in a game with anime bullshit, and the whole concept of the Gestrels and the Gestral village feels like something straight out of a standard JRPG. And if you bother to read anything about the game's director, it's very clear how the game is inspired by other JRPGs and turn-based games. And that's the silver lining. Because I've also seen people talk about how Expedition 33 may be their gateway to more turn-based games and JRPGs. Because these folks are about to discover a whole genre of games with amazing worlds and stories and music. It's like a brand new world just waiting to be explored, and I find that prospect very exciting. So, to wrap it up, go play more JRPGs. Actually, just go play more games in general, and I will get back to finishing Expedition 33 and beating the shit out of the painters. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe maybe if you want to see more, and I will see you again soon.